should you be adding salt to a glass of water and drinking it every morning? Now that's what a lot of people have been saying on the internet, with claims that a pinch of salt in a glass of water has many benefits for your health, particularly because it helps with hydration. And if you're familiar with the channel, then you know that I like to fact check these kinds of things, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be finding out why people would be saying this, whether or not there's actually any science behind these claims, and of course, whether it's something that is actually going to be beneficial to your health. So let's go. So the reason that I think this trend has kind of blown up recently is because hydration is now the new thing. Companies are putting out hydration drinks left, right, and center, and everyone is now becoming very focused on whether or not they are getting enough hydration. And that goes beyond making sure you have enough water in a day. It also means you're making sure you're having enough electrolytes like sodium and potassium. That's where all these drinks come in. They claim to give you not only the amount of water that you need, but also the amount of electrolytes that you need as well. Now we're having people saying that you actually just need a little bit of salt in some water and your hydration needs can be met. And honestly, I find all of this a little bit confusing, and I'm assuming you do too. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on the hydration drinks themselves. They'll get their own little video. But with this whole salt water trend, the recommendation is to add a tiny bit of unrefined salt, so that's something like pink Himalayan salt, to a glass of water. And what this is meant to do is help your body absorb the water that you are drinking in that glass of water, which means more efficient hydration. But this is one of those trends that people need to be careful with, because it's not something that just anyone watching can go ahead or should go ahead and try. Sodium or salt can be dangerous to your body, especially when you have too much. And I'm going to say this right now, if you have high blood pressure, or your blood pressure is elevated, or you have heart issues, or you have kidney issues, then this is not a trend that is for you. Or if you think it is, definitely talk to your doctor, because salt and those medical issues, they do not go well together. But let's talk about the science. Why might this work? Well, sodium, which is another name for salt, is important for a lot of processes all around your body. And one of the main things it's needed for is fluid balance. So your body is about 60% water, and some parts of the body have more water than others. For example, your muscles, they're about 70% water. But regardless, what you need is a balance between the amount of water that is outside your cells and the amount of water that is inside your cells. And this needs to be perfectly balanced, because otherwise bad things happen. So sodium essentially attracts water towards it. I'm going to give you a little bit of an example here to hopefully help you understand. So this is a cell in your body, and this is the fluid outside of your cells. Now, if you have too much sodium outside the cell, water will move from the cell to the fluid outside to keep things balanced. But that's not ideal, because the cell shrinks and gets damaged and it could die. Now let's think about it the other way around. If there is too much sodium inside the cell, then water will move from outside to inside, and this will swell up your cell and it could burst it. So you can see that both of these scenarios are not that good, and that's why we need fluid to be balanced inside your body. When the amount of sodium that is inside your cells and outside of your cells is exactly the same and balanced, we call that isotonic, and your body works very hard to make sure that this is always the case. Now, aside from fluid balance, there are a bunch of other things that sodium is needed for, and here is a list. As you can see, it's a pretty big list. We've got nerve function, muscle contraction, there's blood pressure there, which I think is probably one of the most commonly associated things with sodium and salt. A lot of people know that too much sodium, not great for your blood pressure. Now look, I'm not here to explain all of these in detail today. I can do that in another video if that's something you want, but I just want to point out that sodium isn't just for hydration. It's needed for a wealth of things all around the body, and this is just a small portion of that. It's a very important mineral in our body, and a lot of the talk around sodium tends to be negative because it isn't great for things like blood pressure and your heart if you have a lot, but it does have a role like all things. But let's get back to this whole saltwater trend. So the main reason that it's being recommended is because of benefits to mental clarity and potentially energy levels if you have it first thing in the morning. And hopefully, from what I've mentioned already, you can see why these benefits might happen. So the first thing and probably biggest reason is hydration. Most of us are not properly hydrated. About 80% of us here in Australia aren't getting enough hydration in a day. And we aren't the only countries. We can see that the USA is not far behind us. And if you continuously don't get enough hydration, you start to experience chronic dehydration, and that involves symptoms such as these. And these symptoms might be familiar to some of you watching. Things like mood swings, headaches, concentration issues, and also physical symptoms too, like muscle cramps, which I know they can be quite common. Now, like most situations, dehydration isn't the only thing that can cause all of these symptoms, but just keep it in mind because it is a more simple fix than other problems. Now, I know a lot of people out there think that dehydration is only really a problem if it gets severe enough, but low-grade dehydration, which is the one that causes all these symptoms, they can impact your day as well. So it's a good issue to target, and this whole hydration movement, it's great, and it seems to be trying to improve on this pretty big issue. So because salt can help you absorb more water when you drink it, this is why having a glass of water with a pinch of salt in the morning can help with hydration and make you feel a bit more alert, because it helps address the symptoms of that low-grade dehydration that a lot of us are experiencing. And of course, an alternative solution is having more water throughout the day on a regular basis, but that won't target the electrolyte issues like the sodium and the potassium. Now, sodium is an electrolyte, and it's an important one, like I have mentioned earlier in the video. It's needed for nerve and muscle function. So by introducing a small amount into the morning through a glass of water, you can help restore sodium levels that you may have lost and improve your mental focus and physical energy levels as well because of the muscles that need them. Now, another thing that sodium actually helps with is circulation. Salt water increases your blood volume. Usually this tends to be a bad thing if you have high blood pressure, but if you have no blood pressure issues and your diet isn't already high in salt, then this could actually improve your blood circulation, which means more blood and oxygen travel to places like your brain. And this is another reason behind the improved mental clarity claim. So hopefully at this point you are starting to see why this trend could be helpful. Now, I'm going to move on to the types of salt because that matters a lot when it comes to this trend. Now, typically there are 4 main types of salt that you find. We've got table salt, sea salt, Himalayan pink salt, and there's also grey salt. Now, table salt is the most processed type of salt, and it has the least health benefits. It doesn't have any extra minerals in it, and unfortunately this is the type of salt that most of us are consuming in our diets as part of processed foods. The types of salt that people are talking about when they actually suggest adding salt to water and drinking it are the more mineral-based salts, so things like your Himalayan pink salt, and that is because these are also rich in minerals. And these are the salts that can give you the benefits like mental clarity, better energy levels, and so on. They mainly contain sodium, but they also have potassium, magnesium, and calcium, all of which are needed by your nerves and muscles. And unfortunately, common table salt, the more processed types of salt, they do not have all these extra minerals for you. So the big question then is, how much salt are we talking about here? And this is a very important question to answer because you're not going to be using a big old spoonful. It's literally just a pinch of salt, and a small pinch of salt at that. Definitely wouldn't want any more than 1/4 teaspoon being used, and you end up adding that to around 500 mils of water. If you want to drink less water, use less salt. I cannot stress enough that it's just a small amount of salt. Now, the last thing I actually want to discuss is who should actually be trying this trend, because like I said at the start, this isn't something that just anyone should be trying, and it's why health trends can be dangerous, because when they go viral, they end up all over the internet on different social media feeds, and they reach all kinds of people with different health backgrounds, and then people that shouldn't be trying this, such as people with heart problems or blood pressure issues, they end up giving it a try and it could end up being harmful. So first and foremost, if there is any issue with blood pressure for you, this isn't something that you should just try. If you have heart or kidney issues, again, this isn't something that you should just jump on board with. So who could give this a try and who could actually benefit from this? Now, athletes stand to benefit the most, and that's because if you do a lot of physical activity, you tend to lose more electrolytes through sweat, which means hydration becomes more important. It's only really when you're losing all these electrolytes that replacing them becomes more important, and if you think about it, athletes, they'll be losing the most. Now, I do know Andrew Huberman suggests this trend for people that have a lot of caffeine or for people that do intermittent fasting as well. And this is because caffeine can dehydrate you, so the hydration through the salt water is a means to offset that, and for intermittent fasting, it's beneficial because during a fast, what your body does is first use up all of its carbohydrate stores. So if you remember from past videos, this is called glycogen, and glycogen is bound to water and sodium. They're kind of stored together. So if you end up using all your glycogen because you're fasting, you're losing more water and sodium than the average person, and that impacts on your hydration and electrolyte levels. So a saltwater drink in the morning could then help to counter this and prevent the symptoms of fatigue and headaches that can come from a low carbohydrate diet. Now, all of this honestly is just in theory and the science behind why it could work. I'm not sure if this all actually works in reality. I haven't tried it myself. If anyone has tried it, please let me know in the comments. I'm quite curious to know because I can't find any studies or anything where this has been done. So if you do a lot of exercise, if you do intermittent fasting, if you have a lot of caffeine and you're a person with no health issues, there is likely no harm in trying this and you may find some benefit. I think this is more of an alternative to all the hydration products that seem to be popping up. If you look closely at the ingredient lists of these hydration drinks, you'll see that they have sodium and potassium, which is what is contained in these mineral-based salts. And you really don't know what type of salt they're using in these products. It's likely that they're using processed salts. And to be honest, the hydration space right now, well, especially the hydration drink space, it's just all about business at the moment. So be careful, tread carefully. Hydration is incredibly important for health, but just understand that businesses will be there to take advantage of that. Now, I'll make a follow-up video on how to pick the right hydration drinks if you're using those or you need to use those. But if you want something more simple that you can find at home, if you have those mineral-based salts, this might be a good trick that can help. But I think the biggest thing to realize is that something like this with all the electrolyte replacement tricks like the hydration drinks or even using the salt water, it is mainly for people that are more at risk of losing electrolytes. So like I said, and I've said in this video, people that are fasting, people that are athletes, if you sweat a lot during the day, if you live in a hot country like Australia in summer, which is coming up here, you're going to be losing a lot of electrolytes. So those are the situations where you need to be more in tune with hydration. If you're not one of those people, probably just making sure you're drinking enough water in a day is adequate. But if you're feeling those symptoms like I've talked about with the dehydration, fatigue, the headaches, and you haven't tried just increasing the amount of water that you're drinking a little bit, that's something to try. Now, if you have made it this far into watching this video, first of all, thank you. You may have noticed that it's been quite a few weeks since the last time I put out a video, and that's because I did mention in a post that I was in a bit of a car accident and have just been dealing with that for the past few weeks and getting back to normal with my movement and my body. Unfortunately, it's affected what I can do at the gym and things like that, so I'm just having to take a step back. But now I actually have a little bit of break for my master's degree. It's an inter-trimester break, so I'm looking forward to just focusing a little bit more on this channel because I haven't been able to for the past month pretty much. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please comment them below and I'll do my best. And I will see you in the next video. Until then, keep playing the long game.